I am Dave Henning with the Fresh Start Podcast, fresh ideas for business and personal growth. And my very special guest today is Mr. Eric Twiggs. Stay tuned, by the way, and get a proven blueprint to beat procrastination. I can use that right now. Can you send it on over, please? It will help you, believe it or not, make more money, get more done, and feel more confident. So we're going to talk about that today. Welcome, Eric. Thank you for being with me.
Hey, thank you for having me on your show. It's truly an honor.
I appreciate it as well. Your book, The Discipline of Now, 12 Practical Principles to Overcome Procrastination. Back when blogs were more popular, I actually wrote a blog about procrastination because I'm guilty as charged, quite frankly. You've been recognized as the global top 10 finalist in the 2020 Author Elite Awards in the category of Best Self-Help Book. That is awesome. And you also host a weekly inspirational podcast, the 30-Minute Hour. Tell me a little bit more about that 30-minute hour thing.
Yeah. So it's a pod. We say it's not your everyday podcast. Our target audience is authors, entrepreneurs, and career professionals. And we help people to level up and learn so that ultimately they can become unstoppable and really press through the challenges that they have.
Oh, that is outstanding. People can find that where?
Well, you can go to the website, which is the 30minutehour.net.
Yeah.
And that way you can get an archive of all the shows. For people that like to access podcasts from their platforms, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, and all those usual places that people like to get their podcasts.
Oh, excellent, excellent. I'm going to have to check that out myself, my friend. That's awesome. You conducted, hold the presses. You've conducted over 28,000 coaching sessions, helping executive leaders and entrepreneurs who have moved from feeling frustrated, like I think last year was the frustration with a capital F, to finding fulfillment, frustration to fulfillment. I feel a book coming on. Have you written a book by that title yet? That's a great title.
Not yet, but that'll be the next one.
Awesome. Proven blueprint for beating procrastination, as we said, make more money, get more done, feel more confident. That's an issue, even amongst, as you know, like over 99% of all businesses have 50 employees or less in the United States, plus your corporations and your LLCs and so forth. And so this really makes sense and applies to a lot of people. Tell me, how did you get started in this? I'm curious.
So really, the story starts back when I was in college. This was my senior year. I was at Hampton University. And I'm having this conversation with my good friend, his name's Donnell. And I have to confess, at the time, we were a little different. He was all about his purpose, and I was all about the party. And, he'd always give me a hard time and say, man, you really need to get it together, figure out what you want to do. And I'm like, man, loosen up. We have plenty of time for that. Are you coming to the first party with me or not? And so time goes by. I don't talk to him, but then I get a phone call from his mother informing me that he was killed in a car accident.
No.
Yeah, changed everything for me. It sent me the message that maybe I don't have the time that I think to do the things that I want to do. And ever since, I've had this laser focus on time management and overcoming procrastination and paying attention to how I'm spending time. But everything started from that point. That's really when I started focusing on.
Oh my goodness. If you are ever going to get somebody's attention, oh yeah, I totally get that. A friend of mine back in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I live, wrote a book called From Success to Significance. For all those people that have had great success in their lives, and now they step back to maybe a few years older, and they want to look inward. Why am I here? Why am I doing what I'm doing? It's like the great philosopher once said thousands of years ago, will it matter that I was? Right? Speaking of which, tell me about, if you would, Eric, the What Now movement.
Yeah, so the What Now movement is something that we started April of last year right as the pandemic was getting going. So I'm the president of the What Now movement. My podcast co-host is one of my vice presidents. And we started it because we kept talking to people who would say, I'm going to start this venture, but I'm going to wait until things get back to normal before I get it going. We kept, in different walks of life, they kept saying that. And we said, that's the last thing you want to do. You should be asking yourself the question, what now? The light bulbs all started going off, and we said, hey, we need to call this thing the What Now movement. And the whole purpose of the movement is to inspire people to pivot instead of stop. So when you face a crisis, the last thing you want to do is stop. You know, you think about it. There's a reason that a lot of successful businesses were birthed during some type of economic downturn.
Exactly. I've always talked about that, be it the great pandemic of 1900 whatever, World War I, World War II, where Ford had to retool his whole Ford factory to build planes, for example, or the things that have come out last year that didn't exist in terms of businesses, products, services. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the What Now movement was birthed out of the pandemic. And so we have, like, we've done master classes. We just finished a 7-week master class where we had speakers come in and provide content to help people to keep moving. We've got this Facebook group right now. It's up to about 1,600 people, and we provide content, and it's a big network. So it's really, it's an example of what you just said. It's really been birthed out of this pandemic. But here's the thing. There's going to be another crisis. The pandemic's going to pass, but it's going to be something else. But you still have to ask yourself that question, what now?
Yeah. So speaking of pivoting, I had to pivot really quick here because I just spilled coffee all over myself. So I'm pivoting back to looking at the camera here. Yeah, typical me. Don't tell anybody, but I'm kind of, I used to be nervous and jerky. Now I'm not nervous anymore. Just jerky. Well, I'm really impressed with what you are doing and what you've put together, because I said this just the other day to another interview. Dr. Robert Schuller once said, find a need and fill it. But then he went on to say, find a hurt and heal it, which is big, regardless of whether you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, a shopkeeper, whether you are driving a school bus like I did years ago when my kids were little, or whatever you're doing, there's always room to touch somebody's life for what matters. Wouldn't you agree?
Sure. Yeah. And I think it's really about making an impact. And you mentioned the whole thing about success versus significance. I mean, that's a part of my story too. So like when I had the incident when Donnell passed away, I thought the message was make as much money as I can, don't procrastinate on, moving up the corporate ladder. But right. I got to this point, I never get it. I mean, I'm in my car, I'm driving the BMW, I'm at a point in my career where it felt like I was having all this success, right? I was a district manager at 17 automotive locations reporting to me, 500 people were making all this money, setting records. But I remember sitting at the light, I looked in the rearview mirror, and the eyes that were looking back at me were the eyes of someone who hated what he was doing, right? So I had income, but I felt like I wasn't really making an impact. And I think that's so important. I didn't feel like I was doing something that was going, when I was gone, was going to just last and really change people's lives. And I think that is very, you can't just focus. Sometimes impact is more important than income. You really have to look at that.
Oh, wow. Well said. That I'm gonna steal that from you as well. Borrow, as we say. Yeah.
So the first time you have to give me credit though, right?
Of course. Yeah. In the footnotes, wherever that is. Yeah. Wow. Man, I totally get it. And my life has been a certain amount of tragedies and triumphs. I lost my little boy when he was 5 years old. My dad died young, and stuff has happened through my life. But for me, my purpose has been in the power of encouragement, just encouraging people, even to the point of people who don't get a lot of recognition, like the cashier at the grocery store. Read their name tag and call them by name. And, when they're so like, we can't wait to get off this shift and go home. And then, they just perk up. They're like, wow, that was nice. Just little things can, even, it doesn't even have to be some big, huge thing. But what inspired you, Eric, to write The Discipline of Now? What inspired you on that?
I wanted to put a tool in people's hands that they could use to help them to overcome procrastination. And part of my frustration was a lot of the resources I was finding, it was a lot of the same type of information. It was, you got to be an early bird, don't check your email before noon.
Yeah.
A lot of that same cookie cutter type thing. And one of the things that makes The Discipline of Now different is that you can be a night owl, for example.
Yeah.
And there's specific things you can do, but it doesn't really, it takes into account like genetics. It takes into account your personality trait. So if you're a certain, you don't have to be that type A personality to benefit from the book. You can be someone that's very analytical and takes a long time to make decisions. You can find specific tips for you. And so I tried to customize the principles based off of where people were coming from.
Yeah, so you really kind of just described how your book is different from others out there because, you are so right. There are so many thousands of self-help books out there. And it's just really hard to determine, well, what is going to impact my life? People need to discover that yours is one of many that is different, as you said. I hope that we get that message out there today and get people looking up your book, The Discipline of Now. So who's the book for?
Yeah, entrepreneurs and executive leaders, the person that's looking to go from good to great.
That's Jim Collins. I have that book.
I've actually read that book too.
From good to great.
Because it's really, and one of the things you mentioned, the 28,000 coaching sessions, right? So one of the things I've noticed, you can have somebody that gets good results, and then you can have somebody that gets great results. And what I found just from working with a lot of people, a lot of times they have a similar know-how level, right? They know a lot of the same things. There's not that much of a difference. But what separates them quite often is the person that gets great results. They have this way to get themselves to do what they need to do, whether they feel like it or not. And that's why this idea of overcoming procrastination is so important.
If you waited to feel like it before you did anything, you're in trouble. Have you ever seen the little videos? You might have seen this. I think it's called 212, The Extra Degree. It has a whole kind of a mini documentary on YouTube about what the difference made, 1 degree between boiling water and steam. And it showed all the differences in milliseconds of Olympic runners, NASCAR drivers, of anybody that competes or anybody that has succeeded. It's so minuscule, the difference, and it all has to do with overcoming procrastination. And I don't think Mr. Nike was the first guy that said, just do it either. You've already mentioned who the book is for, and let's dive a little bit deeper on why people really need to tackle their procrastination.
It's a silent killer. That's why, because a lot of times you don't realize that it's impacting you, and it is. So, for example, people tell me all the time, "Oh, I work better under pressure, Eric." Yeah. but what happens is, let's say you wait until the last minute to do something. A lot of times you don't experience an immediate consequence, right? It's not like the procrastination police come knock your door down and take you away to jail, right? It doesn't. So you seem like everything's fine. People you wait till the last minute. People pat you on the back about how the presentation went. So you think, oh, okay, yeah, that went well. Okay. But what you're missing is that it could have gone a whole lot better if you had started when you heard that this was due, if you're just taking a small step. And like, you remember how you talk about the game of inches, right? The different degrees. The person that gets that extra inch is that person that started sooner. So I can wait, but the person that's up for that contract may have started earlier, and his presentation may have just been a little bit better.
Right.
And that person is going to get the contract. So
Yeah.
that's how this works. It's a silent killer.
One of the other illustrations, because I actually like to play golf, but I don't put any pressure on myself, is the difference between the first place in the PGA tournament and second place is like thousands of dollars difference between just first and second place. And the degree of difference, it might be only like one stroke or something.
Yeah. The race car driver, not Jeff Gordon, it's escaping me now, but he had this saying where he said, a tenth of a second separates a zero from a hero to a zero. A tenth of a second.
Right. I actually used to work in the automotive business with Jeff Gordon's ex-brother-in-law, Zero and Hero. Exactly. When I kind of had a mini flashback there for a minute when I was selling a lot of radio ads over the years around the United States. I always had deadlines. And, you put in that contract, you make the sale, and then you got a deadline to get that thing produced and written, produced, and approved and out the door. Had to experience and work with and accept deadlines for stuff. So it's important. And it all has to do with mastering procrastination and not putting things off, which I need some therapy. I'm guilty of procrastinating almost all the time. Hey, let's talk real quick about some simple steps that listeners can do today, beginning today, to take care of combating procrastination. What are some things they can start with right away?
So people will say to me all the time, I always procrastinate. I procrastinate on everything. That's usually not the case. It's usually specific things that you procrastinate on, right? So the key is really looking at your life, become aware of those patterns. Is it a complex project? Is it just you don't like to do it? Is it a task you just want to avoid? So really pay close attention to the patterns in your life that are causing you to procrastinate. But a basic step you can take is getting in the habit of making appointments with yourself. If you do that, instead of saying, I'm going to write the blog post this week, say, I'm going to write the blog post on Tuesday at 2:00 and literally make an appointment. Use your Google Calendar, set it from 2 to 2:30 and treat it like you had a meeting with a very important person and don't miss it. And just, I've had people tell me they were chronic procrastinators. And just by doing that, you're getting it on the calendar. Because when you get it on the calendar, now you're saying that this is something that's important. This is a priority for me. Taking that step, that's a great way to overcome procrastination.
And that is great advice. I'm reminded that I actually have a connection with one of my mentors' calendars, so I can kind of click on his and see if I can fit in an appointment. And I noticed that is something he does each and every week is he has appointments with himself to get stuff done. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Otherwise, you can get bogged down with, I got to call this guy, I got to do this, and it's just an endless cycle of frustration, quite frankly, right? Okay. So that's great. Make an appointment with yourself. So, hey, let's talk. Where can people get in touch with you, and how can I help you, and where can they get a copy of your book?
So they can get a copy of the book. You can go to thedisciplineofnow.com and you can pick up The Discipline of Now. It's in paperback, it's an ebook, and it's also available in audiobook format. And then don't forget to check out the 30-minute hour podcast. You can go to the site, the30minutehour.net, and you can catch up with the episodes. And if you prefer the podcasting platforms, we're on Spotify and we're on Apple Podcasts.
Excellent. I'm talking with Eric Twiggs. Eric, I appreciate you being my guest today. So one more question. What was your very first job ever when you were a kid?
I worked at Murray's Steakhouse.
Tell me about, when you said steakhouse, tell me more.
Yeah, it was like a grocery store.
Okay.
And I had to let people know where the products were, and I was, stocking the freezer, and that was actually before I went to college. But yeah, so that was.
So you were a teenager?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I interviewed a guy that he started working at a restaurant when he was about 14 years old, and when he was 20, they made him manager of the same restaurant
Wow.
when he was 20 years old. But that pivoted away to something else where he had to move on, but he still likes to cook. So, and then I have been telling this story about a very important entrepreneur that I met. I asked him that same question. He said, I think he was 7. He was 7 years old when he decided to start his own lemonade stand. And his mother would make the lemonade, squeeze the lemons, prepare it for him, put a little table out front. But here's the kicker. He decided to market his lemonade stand. He knew exactly the timetable of when the garbage trucks would go by. And so location, right? And he would sell out of his lemonade by noon. 7 years old. He was thinking like an entrepreneur at 7 years. Isn't that cool? I love that. So, yeah. So you may know James Mulvaney, who invented this podcast software that we're on, and Matchmaker software. And I interviewed him, and I asked him what his first job or what he first did. He was in college with a guy. They had an entrepreneur mindset, and it actually snowed in England briefly, and he connived together and said, "Hey, we could make a fortune selling snow shovels." So they found a factory, got the tour of the factory, trying to figure out, and they actually bought a few snow shovels. But by the time they got them back, the snow had melted.
Wow.
I love to ask that question because you'd be surprised at some of the answers that come out of that from some very successful people. So it's kind of fun. It's my little trick question at the end. But Eric, man, it's been so fun talking with you. And I'm going to be here letting our people know to check out your websites, get that book. And I'm glad you did the audio book because I'm used to using my voice to do audiobooks nowadays. And because that's, think about it. I've read literally hundreds of books. But now I prefer to listen because it's easier, it's more portable in my car or wherever. So we will be glad to promote that for you, Eric. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap things up here?
No, I'm just grateful to be on the show. And if there's one thing I can leave people with, is that remember never to allow perfect to become the enemy of progress. Focus on taking the next step that's in front of you. And that'll help you to move with the discipline of now.
That is so true. So true. Perfect just slows you way down. Thank you, Eric. It's so great to meet you. We'll be talking soon. Thanks a lot.
Hey, thank you.